and fishing building, not accepting payment of any sort to improve living conditions for locals. It draws the support of millions. 4 decades later, Pandurang Shastri Athavale has won the 1997 Templeton Prize for Progress in Religion, receiving the award on Tuesday night in Britain's Westminster Abbey from the Queen's husband, Prince Philip. It's the largest cash prize, more than $1.2 million, even more than the Nobel Prizes. Dada intends to use the money for projects run by his followers. His winning the award puts him in the company of other, more public figures, such as Mother Teresa, the first winner in 1973, and American evangelist Dr. Billy Graham in 1982. Even if Dada has kept a low profile, the fact that he has touched about 20 million people in 100,000 villages or so means that what he's doing is obviously working.
Due to his weakening health, Dada was unable to take your questions himself on Q&A, but let's welcome our guests, his daughter Didi and Professor Betty Unterberger. Thank you very much for being with us today. Didi, let me start with you. First, the secret behind your father's work. What makes it so successful?
First thing is that he doesn't come to people or us to teach or preach or change us or convert us or just coerce his authority, but he tries to make us understand. He becomes one with us, he'll become the head of the family, and secondly, he talks reason. He talks about reason-based religion, and he brings all his thoughts to us, to our intellect and reason.
Okay, well, Professor Underberger, you followed his work, you nominated him for the prize. What was it about what he did that attracted you to his work?
Well, when I first went to India, and I had the opportunity to hear Dada speak, and to be at a great international conference where 500,000 people sat in rapt attention to all the words of wisdom that he spoke at that time. And that wisdom touched my heart. And I knew that he was speaking truth. And then when I went to the villages in India, and I saw the transformation that occurred, and the difference in the Swadhyay villages, and other villages that I've seen throughout India and in other areas of the world, I knew that something very unique was taking place in India.
Well, Didi, if he doesn't actually preach or have any sort of connection in saying, I'm here to do this for you or that for you, what is it that people latch onto? What is it that makes them suddenly think, I trust this man?
The thing is that he is there for love, he is there for building up relationship with them, and that's what he makes us understand. That the God, indwelling God within us, and because of that God within me, it's a fine relationship with the next person living next to me, and that becomes my divine brother. And when I go to somebody selflessly, with that kind of selfless love, it attracts anybody.
Now, of course, it doesn't refer to any one religion. It's supposed to be totally across religions as well, isn't it?
Right. And so everybody is included in it. And in the villages where, in many villages where there are 1/3 of the Hindus and 1/3 of Muslims, or some places where 1/3 population in villages are Hindus and Christians mixed in, everybody understands Swadhyay, believes in Swadhyay, and they all live like divine brothers and sisters.
I'm going to ask you to answer this question, an email question that came from Pakistan, then Professor, I'll ask you to give us a perspective from outside on this too as well. But first, the question to you, Didi. Did Athvale get the award for spreading Hinduism or because of giving spiritual happiness to people?
It was basically the Progress in Religion Award itself, the Templeton Award. It is for originality, creativity, effectiveness, and thoughts for dealing with spirituality and God. I mean, this doesn't contain anything of Hinduism itself. Otherwise, the Templeton people would not have given him.
Professor, why did you nominate him for that particular award?
Because I thought the message that he was offering was a message of universal significance. And it was a message that was badly needed in our alienated world.
What did Dada actually want to achieve when he first started out? I mean, 1954, what was in his mind?
As I understand, of course, he will be the best person to tell that, but as I understand, he didn't want to achieve anything. But because he was seeing the atmosphere then, when he started work, the people around him, the people and the relationships, in the society, he thought that that was not good, and he thought that there should be changed. And that's how he thought of this kind of divine relationship. And that's how about it. I don't think that he wants to achieve something, but I think that whatever this extended family and family members are there in the family, that is his achievement.
We've got a caller from London with a question from England. Go ahead with your question, please, caller.
How do we, please can you let me know, how can we use the Dada theories and practical in this country, in our preaching, please?
Of course, it isn't something like theory, but thing is that if we start understanding and believing in this philosophy, you can just start going to people, building up relationship without any kind of selfish motive, interest, or not just immediate selfish motive, but not even the remotest one, and just go to people whom you don't know before, or you are not related to, and start making friends. But what I feel is that making friends is an English phrase that we use, but this is beyond friendship, this is relationship. And once you start feeling in that, behaving in that, it's a good relationship and it's a good feeling, and you can start it from anywhere, and for any human being it is needed.
Well, Professor, we'll get from you in a minute the perspective from the Western point of view. First, we have to take a short break. We're back with more Q&A in just a few moments. Don't go away. Stay with us. Is worship. That's the preface for today's show, and life's axiom for this year's Templeton Prize for Progress in Religion winner, Shastri Athavale. And we're joined by the Indian-born Hindu spiritualist daughter Didi, and the woman who nominated him for the Templeton Prize, Dr. Betty Unterberger of the Texas A&M University. Dr. Unterberger was taken by Athavale when she first encountered him in India in 1986. Well, thank you very much again for joining us on this show. Let me ask you, Professor, your work, when you started to look at this, how could you see it crossing into the Western culture? How could you see it going from what is quite a big spiritual movement in India anyway into a Western culture?
It has already gone into the West, and it is in many other countries besides India. But of course, the teaching is a universal one. It is for everyone, regardless of their religion. The whole view of an indwelling God is one which I think is clear in every religion, every major religion of the world. And so therefore, once people become aware of that imprisoned splendor, if you will, within them, then their lives are changed. And they begin not only to live differently, but they begin to relate to one another differently. And that is true of Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, whomever. God gave us all this gift.
Well, of course, we got the recognition in the form of the largest prize that anyone could have for doing this kind of religious work. Tell me a little bit about the ceremony last night at Westminster Abbey with Prince Philip. Now, the significance of it for you personally.
The first thing, the significance of the award itself is a big thing, because my father considers it as a blessing of God. He calls it a love letter of God. And secondly, it's a confirmation by the society. So it was a great thing and great event for all of us, especially him, then our family members and the extended family, that is Swadhyay Parivar. And so many of them, of course, those are just in very, very, very few numbers to the number which he has in his family. But 600 people came down here for the function from the Swadhays. Out of them, like 300 came from United States, about 150 from UK itself, and rest from Middle East and India and elsewhere. And that's a great thing for us.
Let me ask you to answer this email question that came from Kuwait. It says, what made Athvale dedicate himself to the complicated tasks of understanding religion? What made him dedicate himself to it?
Understanding religion?
That's what it says. Mm-hmm.
I didn't get exactly the answer, but still the thing is that he understood it. He understood the limitations of religion, and that's why he went beyond that, and he talks about devotion, that is bhakti, which includes everybody, all human beings from the world. It's a global thing, and that is devotion.
Elena in the Netherlands has a question. Go ahead, Elena.
Yes, hello. This is a question for the professor. What does the Catholic religion think of this movement? Thank you.
There are many, of course, Christians and Catholics who are very supportive and who work with the movement. And they find, of course, that the same truth of indwelling God, immanent God, is within all religions.
What about the fact that for many people this is such a spiritual thing with an Indian flavor? Could they relate to that aspect of it?
Well, the Indian flavor, I think, is simply characteristic of the Indian culture. When it is transferred into other areas, of course, they would use other spiritual teachings. They would, if for instance, Dada says, to be a good Swadhyay, you must first be a good Christian, and a good Muslim, and a good Buddhist, and a good Jew, etc., and then you may become a Swadhyay.
Maybe, so, Didi, I'll ask you, there's a particular question I want to ask you in a moment. First, let me ask the professor to answer this one. I think it's probably directed really to you, Professor. From Thailand, it says, if religion and its benefits are such a personal and private matter, why is it necessary to offer public prizes for it?
Well, this, I think, is the desire of Sir John Templeton, who, as he looked around, saw that there were many prizes that were given for many different disciplines. The Nobel Prizes, the Pulitzer Prizes, etc. But there was no single prize that was given for spiritual progress. And he thought that spiritual progress was the most important single discipline that one needed to understand and to spread in our world. And for this reason, he decided that he was not only going to give a prize for it, but it was going to be bigger than any other prize in the world.
It is, in fact, it is sort of the biggest cash prize. And when I spoke to Dada a couple of days ago when we were there together, he said that he was going to use the money for the projects. I want to ask you in a minute just actually how the project is funded. I know we have a caller on the line from India with a question, though, so I'm going to ask them to go ahead. Go ahead, our caller in India.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The question I have is, is the basis of the foundation that any fruits that are derived by any actions of an individual, are these basically dedicated to God?
I didn't understand. I mean, any work or then particularly for God, in the name of God?
Well, I think the idea is when the devotees go and do work in the villages and so on, where does the product of that work go?
Right, product of that work, it's called impersonal wealth, which belongs to God alone, and that is distributed to the needy people or have-nots, what we call. And of course, there are divine brothers, but those are all given to them. Because it's a prasad we call in Indian system, or you say divine benevolence, and that is what it is. So he doesn't have to feel inferior in front of anybody, and his needs are fulfilled.
I know Dada said he doesn't ask for money, he doesn't like to receive any kind of sort of financial recognition or anything like that. He's not interested in gaining any sort of monetary wealth or anything like that. Where does the funding for all this work come from? I mean, it's a large-scale operation, isn't it?
When you call this a family, this works as a family. I mean, can anybody imagine a family running without money? It needs money, but nobody's family is run by the neighbor's money. The same way, anybody cannot just come to us, the Swadhyayis, and just give money and be away from it. He has to be one of us, he has to be one of the family members, and then it is not asked for, but one understands how to do, and he gives his share of God, and it runs as a family. So as in a family, if there are 3 sons and a father and a mother living, one brings bread because he feels that it is needed right now for the breakfast. The other feels that, oh, this is needed, so the tapestry is not good, and he will do that. But nobody is told, because it's a family, it is run like a family.
Genuine sharing. Didi, Professor, don't go away. We have to take another short break. There's more Q&A coming up in just a moment. Join us then. Before we get back to today's guests, let me tell you about what we have on tap for tomorrow's Q&A in London. We'll be joined by respected British novelist, screenplay writer and journalist Faye Weldon. She wears many hats and wears them successfully. the author of The Life and Loves of a She-Devil, made into a Hollywood movie starring Meryl Streep and Roseanne. Faye Weldon will field your questions about her literary practices and about her life here in Great Britain. You can telephone her during the show, or you can email or fax ahead of time. The fax number and email address are there on your screen. But we still have some time left with our guest today. We have Professor Betty Unterberger, an educator from Texas A&M University, and Didi, and both are here with me to discuss this year's Templeton Prize winner, Shastri Athavale, also known as Dada. Let me ask you a little bit. You were talking about the way it works as a family. Now, it's spread to about 20 million people in the 4 decades that Dada's been doing this work. How are you seeing that spread changing? Has it focused outside India now a lot more, have you noticed?
It gradually grows, and nowadays, as it's an extended family, it's growing. It's growing in a geometrical progression. So when in 1958, when Dada started, there were very, very few. And now it is 20 million. It's a geometrical progression, and it includes United States, UK, Middle East countries, Singapore, Kenya, so many of them.
Has Dada written anything about his work?
He hasn't written himself, but he has been delivering lectures for last 55 years, since 1942. And we have got so many publications of his transcribes, most of them in Indian vernacular languages, that is Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi. But of course he has got few in English as well, which he presented the papers, but he doesn't write. Of course he does know how to write, but he doesn't write because he believes in oral system, which the olden people had.
Now, do you see that as a role for yourself, Professor? That maybe this is something, because you follow the work, that this is a way to translate it now it's your job to translate it into a Western sense in some ways for those people who don't have it?
Well, I began to try to do that, to explain to scholars, especially in Asian studies, what was going on in Swadhyay. And so I began writing first scholarly papers, and some of them have been published. And I had planned on doing a book, and in fact I'm working on a book on Swadhyay. So hopefully I can explain it to the West.
Is there anything that the Western culture can latch onto as a concept, as an idea? Is there anything they can equate it with that's already known or established in Western culture that people can say, it's like that? Because it's not like a commune as such, is it?
Oh, of course not. It has nothing to do with a commune, because it spreads over wide geographic areas, and the whole concept of impersonal wealth is so different from what one thinks of in a commune, where almost everything is done for profit.
Now, we saw in the pictures so many people, so many followers that Dada has. They flock to him, and it seems almost treat him like a prophet. I know I asked him personally, do you worry about this? He said, well, I'm an ordinary man. But do you fear that maybe this could grow to something that he doesn't want?
I mean, he doesn't want, he doesn't feel, and even people who consider him as elder brother, and that's what the meaning of Dada is. But well, if anybody does really something great for me, as the Indian culture goes, even I bow down to my father as a father, because he gives me education, he gives me teachings, he gives me whatever, everything in life, and he showed me this world. So as I bow down to him, Dada is a person who showed us something for well-being. So I don't know what people think, but as he told you, he is the head of the family.
I'm going to get a call in from England. We can squeeze it in. Just a quick question, please, our caller.
Can you tell me why Didi places such a higher emphasis on the Swadhyay family rather than on one's own personal family? She asks people to leave their children at home and go on bhakti fairy visits, because she considers that more important than looking after one's own family.
No, it isn't so. The basic thing is that in Swadhyay, what happens is that whole of the family gets involved. Even the children are there in Swadhyay, even the ladies, the husband, everybody. Everybody is Swadhyay. So it isn't that keeping children. On the contrary, I would say that in Swadhyay we get understanding to help our personal family as well, and to treat and to behave in a real different and nice way in our own family. So this is what Swadhyay teaches. So Swadhyay isn't something that leaving this around and doing something, but it is a betterment of family.
If you have to stop you there, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you very much for joining us on the show. And Professor Betty Unterberger of Texas A&M University, thanks for being on the show. The work of Pandurang Shastri Athavale there on our show. Thanks for sending in your questions by email and, of course, phoning in. Join us for another Q&A. We'll see you again tomorrow.
And Grace